I grew up in Alberta, and going back after a long time to visit, visit the national parks there, it really hits home in terms of how much climate change has impacted what a lot of people might look at as pristine, untouched nature. What Bullfrog is trying to do is slow that down and, hopefully roll that back.
Bullfrog Power is designed to aggregate consumer demand, whether it's from organizations or individuals, and then with that aggregated demand, build new renewable power solutions, renewable projects like wind and solar, so contributing to building a cleaner, healthier Canada.
I do remember the launch of our first wind farm up in Lions Head. And my son, he's a 2005 baby. And so he would have been a year and a half. And I remember looking at the windows and seeing these turbines and realizing how unfamiliar they were for me, but how he would grow up in this world and they would be as familiar as buildings are.
So when I think back to 2005, I wasn't thinking a lot about Canada's energy mix, but I think it was right on the heels of the announcements to shut down the coal plants. So I think it was a very hopeful time, but I think the energy mix, especially in Ontario, was still pretty carbon heavy. So I think there was a lot of work still to be done to clean up the grid.
I have to be honest, in 2005, I wasn't really thinking about it. Climate change just wasn't on my agenda. Sadly, really, but truthfully.
When Bullfrog started, there actually wasn't a lot of choice for customers and consumers across Canada. Over that period of time, Bullfrog has really pushed the market to make choice available to customers, and we see that reflected in the old traditional utilities also starting to offer choice to customers.
Anyone can Bullfrog Power their home. You simply estimate your usage, and we match that usage from green energy sources. So a residential customer would pay a premium to ensure that their source of energy is all from green, renewable energy solutions. And there's no wiring changes needed, no infrastructure changes. It's very simple.
One of the biggest benefits to me about being a Bullfrog Power customer for my house is that I am not in a position to put solar on my house. My roof isn't perfectly situated and going the right way for it. Don't necessarily have the capital to put my own solar panels up. So to know that I can still access and procure clean electricity for my house, even if I'm not physically putting it on my roof, is really helpful. And I think it also goes for people in apartments and condos and other places where they can't necessarily put up solar or wind on their property, to be able to still participate in the clean energy economy for my house. This is the only option that I can think of that allows me to do that.
The people that could see what was coming with climate change and with energy were craving an alternative and craving empowerment. They just had no way to engage. And so giving them the ability to sun up their own home was something so tangible that they can do.
My husband and I signed on in 2013 because they were going to help with the future of Canada in terms of developing renewable energy sources. And by that time, we wanted to get on board too.
Much like being able to choose better products for food and healthcare and clothing, I think having that choice for the energy that you consume as a homeowner is really important. So I think it does give a sense of accountability in the choices that you make and being able to make that decision, even if it does cost a little bit more.
Bullfrog is a grassroots organization. So we're always working with communities coast to coast on regional solutions. So yes, we have utility scale supply, but we also work with small local communities on projects that help move and transition them from, let's say, diesel to solar, or help them, reduce their emissions in other ways. Out in Nova Scotia, and an amazing example of a community project out there is Hope Blooms, where we have solar panels on a greenhouse.
Hi, my name is Kolade Boboye. I am currently the creative director of Youth Impact Business here at Hope Blooms. So on the Hope Blooms campus, we have a variety of structures, like our off-the-grid greenhouse. We also have our urban farm, which we produce over 3,000 pounds of food every year. And then of course, our global kitchen for social change, where we do our programming, we do most of our productions and also the operations. We have solar panels attached to the building, which allows us to completely operate all year round without relying on the power grid.
Bullfrog's evolving and moving to continue to be ahead of the pack when it comes to what are the impacts of our projects. So it's not purely we're reducing carbon intensity of the grid, but now we're looking to what are the impacts on society broadly? What are impacts on the community?
My name is Kelly Marie Redcliffe, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wolfville Farmers Market. We learned that there was this opportunity from Bullfrog to have a contribution to a solar panel project. Our conduit to Bullfrog was through a community champion. So you begin to see that your community is not just your geographical community, but the community of people who also care. And so I think it just adds to that sense of like ripple effect of yesness to what you think is good and right.
I think there the impact is like a community one for the town of Wolfville, but then you have all kinds of people who come far and wide to the market. It's hard to get a seat on Saturday morning.
Bullfrog that are actively doing this and actively, like you said, to add incentives to organizations like us where we can directly influence a community.
I think it's very important for both businesses and individuals to be able to use the information they have and to make good choices. Brian Titus, I'm President General Manager of the Garrison Brewing Company. Having somebody like Bullfrog out there and the founders having the vision to start it allows us to make those good choices.
So for commercial customers, we essentially can meet a number of their energy-related needs to reduce their emissions. We can address their scope 1, 2, or 3 footprints, and we have green natural gas, green electricity, green fuel, also power purchase agreements, and also carbon offsets for commercial entities. We can really tailor a solution to meet an organization's needs with our suite of offerings.
Lush has purchased renewable energy certificates from Bullfrog Power, quite a feat, 15 years now, and been a really strong partner with Bullfrog Power. And I think that's because we really support the ethics and the values that go behind some of the projects.
It's important to integrate it into your business, educate your employees, your staff, your members to the best of your ability, and that way you're actually kind of driving change out into your community. My name's Tyler Conway. I work for East Coast Credit Union. We're trying to make improvements as we go to try and formalize something so that when I touch a space, here's what's going in there, and a standard rule of thumb to follow as we continue to improve our spaces. So that's in the works, and that'll include things, like I said, LED lighting. It could be to have a standard occupancy sensor. It could be water cisterns. We have solar on 3 of our locations right now. And as we continue to make improvements at branches across our network, it's part of our strategy and plan to continue to add panels and create more renewable energy at our buildings.
think beyond the product, the sale, the business. Think about what we contribute or take away from the environment, the community. So things like environmental awareness has always been part of that. Are we helping or hurting the situation, and what can we do more? We're not farmers, but we're very dependent on that which is created by farmers, and so the environment plays such a heavy role in what we do. Even just things like the sprint grain, the barley, wheat, when we're finished with it, what do? Turns out cows love it, horses love it, pigs love it. So we work with local farmers to make sure that actually gets used as a resource, not just a waste byproduct.
We like to use products that are being sourced by regenerative farmers that are putting back into nature some of that biodiversity which is being lost. Lush has very strong values and very strong ties to biodiversity, including animals and plants alike. And so we want to work as much as possible to ensure that animals are not being used in cosmetic testing or any other testing.
That's what we're seeing now, is it's not an option for companies anymore. It's increasingly becoming a requirement for them to show to government, for them to show to investors, for them to show to customers. We are doing things to not just reduce our impact, but as we move forward, we're doing things to, as we used to say, leave this place better than we found it.
Bullfrog has always stood for high-quality solutions. All of our work is audited voluntarily by Deloitte to ensure that our customer commitments are met to the highest quality as we promise. We are a B Corp, very focused on people and the planet. We are also endorsed by many environmental nonprofits like World Wildlife Fund and Pembina, who themselves are purchasing Bullfrog for their own spaces. And so that says a lot about the quality of the environmental solution and action that you can take through Bullfrog.
It's a cost of doing business the right way and using business as a force for good, right?
I have to buy flowers or coffee, or I know there's Bullfrog Power cafes. And so, knowing that there are businesses out there that are, sharing the same values that I have, that I can support, I do my best where I can.
What Bullfrog sourcing strategy does enable is those developers in those provinces to build out renewable capacity, maybe a bit ahead of what regulation might require of them, because we are bringing demand for that clean energy to the developer. So Nova Scotia, again, was one of the early examples for us where Eller's House was a wind farm that Bullfrog was supportive of. And in the years since, they've continued to expand out and build additional renewable capacity. And now that's something that the utility in Nova Scotia has really taken hold of and said, this is the direction that we need to be moving.
The Eller's House wind farm, that's something that we're proud to be a small part in the development of renewable energy here in Nova Scotia. Our members and communities, that's where our roots are, that's where we find our greatest success. And to support a local project, that means a lot to us, right? That we're not just getting energy from a project that's elsewhere in Canada, but our partnership with Bullfrog has led to a project here in Nova Scotia, right? That we can point to and say, hey, this is who we're partnered with and this is one of our sources.
Yeah, that's everything, to actually have a local project to be able to point to and see tangible results. It's great to have projects across the country. It benefits us all as Canadians, but it's that much better to be able to have one in our own backyard. So we're thrilled to be part of that.
The provinces are really responsible for how energy is generated within provincial borders. So that does extend to limited build out of transmission between provinces.
Even if there isn't a lot of kind of interprovincial transmission of energy, the benefit to wind and solar is that you can deploy those in grids that are really carbon intensive. So here in Ontario, our grid mix has nuclear and hydro and still has some fossil fuel based sources. But in other provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan and in some of the Atlantic provinces where it's very fossil fuel based still, you can build wind and solar in those provinces that directly benefits those provinces and the people that live within those provinces, which is hugely beneficial to Canada's grid mix overall.
We believe in empowering communities to transition to a cleaner energy future, in putting the power in the hands of people and communities to make meaningful choices around their energy solutions and to be able to see the benefits of those choices.
I think businesses and everyone do have the collective opportunity and responsibility to work on decarbonizing our energy system. And that's because we all share this earth, we all share this atmosphere. And the climate crisis and climate change is not specific to one person or to one geographic location.
We also work very closely with Indigenous communities, and that's a strong, important piece of Bullfrog's work.
I read in the blogs about, let's say, a project with Indigenous people, and they have them help install the solar panels, so they are learning skills that they hopefully can get future work, as well as being proud that they were part of that project.
Especially projects in remote areas or in underserved communities where there has been a really heavy reliance on diesel for many decades. To be able to support projects in these communities that provide not only a clean energy source within those communities, but also sometimes a revenue stream in those communities is really inspirational to know that I'm a part of that.
We know that a lot of these remote communities have contributed the least in terms of creating this climate crisis which we are in. And so oftentimes those areas are relying on really unreliable and dirty fuels like diesel, which can really destroy the air quality in that area, as well as have a dependence on fossil fuels. And so if we are able to help by partnering with Bullfrog Power to install renewable energy in those areas, it affords them to have energy independence, cleaner air. It makes me really proud of the company I work for, and with all of the work that Bullfrog is doing, we fully support them, and we are glad that they have such similar ethics and core values to Lush.
If you step back and you look what happened over 20 years, there's been a huge, almost inconceivable advancement in the amount of renewable energy and the price point of renewable energy. It's just much, much more affordable than it was 20 years ago.
So like stuff like that is like, how do we communicate that to people? How do we incentivize that where if it is a cheaper option, if it is we know it's a better option, why are we not actively introducing that into our economy, into our communities, into our cities? Because clearly if it's cheaper and more affordable, that's what we're all looking for. The goal is to find an alternative to fossil fuels.
I am definitely hopeful for the future, and I guess that's because I'm generally an optimist. I think we've come such a long way from where we were. However, now we know we have all of the technology available. We have all of the renewable energy to displace our carbon footprint. We can do what it takes to make sure we are implementing the right solutions now.
It makes them feel proud. It makes people say, oh, you're doing that, maybe I should do that. Or, oh, I'm glad you're doing that.
How I feel about climate change today, that's a tough question. I think most days I'm really hopeful that we're doing the right thing. And again, having choices like Bullfrog Power, being able to make decisions for me and my family, it does give me hope that enough people and enough businesses and enough kind of government regulation is coming down that is, helping us mitigate the worst impacts of climate change.
One can only have hope. This is the one world we have, and so we need to protect it. And efforts like working with the Bullfrog Power to enhance and increase the renewables, fantastic. It's what we need to do.
We believe everyone should have a green energy choice, whether it's a consumer, a residential customer, or a commercial customer. And this voluntary market of organizations and individuals who want to make a difference is essential to accelerating our path to a clean energy future.